All right, everybody. I am Darren Austin Hall, and I'm so happy to be here with one of my dearest and newest friends, Lorena Bousquet-Kacera of the amazing Living Center. And Lorena has just been a dynamo of creating sacred culture for decades, and I revere her. I look up to her. I admire her. And the Living Center is near London, Ontario, and she'll get into more of what it is about, but I see it as a nexus of eco-spirituality and really the regeneration of really earth-based culture. Lorena's also a kind of alchemist of movement medicine, I would say, and a deep channel, and really been reactivating a lot of your sound and music, healing powers, which is so exciting to see because, of course, I love that realm as well. And I see you as well. I don't know if you wear this cap, but I really see you as a New Earth elder, even though you look so beautiful and young still because of your diet and your dedication to the natural principles of healing in the earth, but you really have that kind of ability. I see elders as like walking smudge sticks in a way. They just walk in the room and they speak and they just transmit and they just purify the ethers just by their presence. And you really have that energy, I feel. So I'm excited to talk to you today about sound medicine, and I'm sure we'll get into many different rabbit holes about many deep topics. So hello, Lorena.
Yeah, yeah. Hi, it's great to be here with you and to be sharing something that we both love so much. So,
Yes.
um, yeah, I mean, you've been walking your talk around sound medicine for a very long time, and we've had an opportunity to watch your journey,
Mm.
and to see you in Costa Rica, a place that we love and go to on a regular basis. And, the challenges
Mm.
and and where you're at now, with your journey. I mean, you've really cultivated something that is so fine and so beautiful and so focused, and you've stayed with it. And now your offerings, are all over the world. And
Mm.
so here we are planning to do this little one-day workshop, which we anticipate will be very powerful here at the Living
Always.
Center. And so we thought that it would be great to share some of our journey, with those that are going to be watching us, and just why the sound work has been so powerful in both of our lives in very different ways.
Mm.
But nonetheless, it has brought both of us to critical places of inner transformation. And I really feel that the sound work you mentioned, something about I'm a channel, which is not something that anyone has ever said before, but yes, right. And I
Mm.
know that the sound work has been absolutely key in opening up the pathways
Hmm.
and continues to be in opening up the pathways so that I can hear the calling of spirit and what the next steps are in my life and what's happening on the planet and what the earth needs. You're right. I mean, our center is completely dedicated to the question of how do we serve Mother Earth. Yeah, so I mean, it started for me literally 35 years ago when I was
Mm.
going through a healing crisis. And honestly, I didn't know what to do. I had been very focused and intentional, a spiritual path, living in community, going through intense training, and it was wonderful. I loved it for 13 years. And then I got sick, which made no sense to me at all because,
Mm.
after all, I was doing everything right.
Hmm. Hmm.
Why did I get sick?
Mm.
And so I had to move away from my spiritual group, which was a very sad thing. But I
Mm.
just intuited that I needed to that wasn't where I was going to find my answers. And this was serious. So I really needed to be serious about this. My
Mm.
son was 14 at the time. He is now 49. Amazing.
Wow.
And and I needed to stick around. So I remember hearing this little message saying, do what you love, when I would ask, and I didn't know what that meant. And I had actually I was such a serious spiritual student, so to speak, that which I loved, but that question baffled me. I had lost touch. And and the only thing I could think is I love to move and I love to use my voice. And that was really always my therapy. When I was a child, is I would dance and it would set me free. And I'd use my voice and it would set me free. And at the time, sound work was just coming in, overtone chanting, the odd person had a singing bowl. It was really pretty
Right.
new, right?
Yeah.
And but I had a deep intuition that there was something important here.
Mhm.
I was terrified of my voice.
Mhm.
I was terrified to speak. I remember being in meetings and I'd go to speak and I could feel the room go, oh no, God, no, Lorena's going to be speaking. I had so much I wanted to say, and it would come out all mixed up.
Mm.
And of course, at the time, I hadn't done any of my shadow work. I didn't even know there was shadow work. In those days, who talked about shadow work?
Right.
So I I would do some sound work. I'd try overtone chanting and things like this in the car. So I didn't have to hear my voice.
Yes. The
And that was
secret chamber of sound
that's
making,
right.
the
That's right.
car.
And then I decided, well, okay, I've got to do this. This is feeling really good. Things were moving in my body. Energy was moving. And so I bought a little drum, which I couldn't play, but at least it was a noise. And I was sharing the house with other people. I was living in Toronto at the time. And I said to them, I just have to do this, so please bear with me. And before I knew it, my voice, the sound work was taking me into the deep, deep recesses of my inner landscape, into parts of myself and sounds that I didn't even know existed in me.
Mm.
And at the same time, I was working with the continuum work, and which was something that my body brought me into this primordial movement. And so the sound and the movement, I'll tell you, I'd walk in down the stairs in the morning, and it was hard to get down. And by the time I
Mm.
finished my practices with moving and sound, I'd walk
Mm.
up and it's,
Wow.
what is going on here? Like this, I was healing so quickly,
Mm.
and I was so curious about what was going on. Like I was fascinated with it all.
Mm.
And so I just kept watching it. And then I noticed that there were memories from my childhood that started to come through.
Mm.
And, you know, I I never really, I always thought I came from a normal family. And I began to actually see the dysfunction and see the trauma that happened at a very young age. And that's why
Mm.
I'd forgotten it until I was 40. And but the beautiful thing about it is that the memories came up when I was ready to receive them. And that's
Mhm.
a beautiful thing about doing things from a deep felt connection.
Yes, a
It's not
natural connection.
a natural connection, exactly. You know, I it taught me that life is
Mm. Mhm.
kind, and that we're only given what we're able to manage.
Mm.
So I was finding myself, yes,
Mm.
I was getting all these memories. Yes, I was having all sorts of experiences. I was traveling, I was journeying. It was
Mm.
fabulous, actually.
Mhm.
And even though all of this was coming up, it was so exciting what was happening. And my body was healing and my energy was coming back and I was getting strong. And I realized that what I was doing is I was releasing through my voice and my movement, but particularly my voice, frequencies, sound frequencies that have been locked in my nervous system for decades. And they just needed to move. I didn't need to remember all of the details around it. I just needed to move the energy.
Mhm.
And from there, all sorts of other things began to open up where now I offer um, private and group sound healing processes where I take people on journeys and I never know where we're going to go.
Mhm.
I never know what's going to come out of my voice. I love this.
Mhm.
Listening to the energy of the group or the person,
Mhm.
and I can take them through a journey that will help them to connect with their own, uh, with parts of themselves that have been locked down, by
Mhm.
the culture, by traumas, by this culture we live in, right?
Yes.
So it has opened sound work for me is precious.
Mhm.
Some of the things I'm offering now, I really just kept to myself for 3 decades.
Mhm.
And I mean, I've always brought it into my work, which is the Shamanu Earth Wisdom teachings,
Mhm.
but never to this extent.
Mhm.
And you have really inspired me because when
Mm.
when you've been here and you've been offering things, and afterwards, I think I love this. I love what he's
Yes.
doing. I love the weaving that you do with story and taking taking us into journeys that
Yeah.
what this workshop is about that you and I are offering together is
Mhm.
really opening the frequencies of light that
Mm.
right
Yes.
and it's time for this. Like the energy on the planet is so rich
Mm.
right now. It's like
Oh,
it is
so
time,
rich. Yeah.
so rich. So I have worked with sound in such an intimate way, in such a personal way. I mean, it has
Mm.
been such a lifesaver for me.
Mm. Mm.
But I know its power.
Mm.
I know its joy.
Mm. Mhm.
It takes me into spaces. It's like every time I do this these days, I feel like I've created this energetic chamber
Mm.
that I've been in past lives many, many times before.
Yes. Well, it's
And
funny because over the years I've found tidbits of stories because I've never used sound in the way that you have to take you through like a massive health crisis adversity. That's a very unique and beautiful experience that you've had with sound in that way. But I've read these anecdotal stories throughout the years from all these like now kind of vanguards. Like you may have heard there's this one guy, Don Campbell, who went into like the Mozart effect. There's this guy, Fabian Mammon, who's a Frenchman who created the tuning fork therapy. And then there's this other man who incorporates sound with shaking medicine in Indonesia. He has like a shaking medicine clinic there on an island. But all of these individuals have been healing people with like cancer. I remember I think it was Don Campbell, had a preface in one of his books where he talked about getting some kind of grave health diagnosis, and he literally just locked himself in his house for like a week and just toned. And it was a similar experience as what you were sharing, this idea of like as we reclaim this kind of, vibrational sentimentality, I've been calling it lately, and vibrational sovereignty, which is a phrase I think sprung up in some of our conversations, which I think is so powerful, vibrational sovereignty, because it really is like this realization that we are ethereal energy and the mind is this bigger field that's around us. So of course, yeah, when memories get dislodged through trauma or they're just exiled from, more of our center, they're just existing in these distant kind of parts of our field, like pockets, packets, and they're kind of locked away. which is a kind of safeguard mechanism so that we can function somewhat in life. But of course, it's a kind of a dysfunction in the sense we're not at our optimum proclivity or expression of ourselves. But when you sound, you're vibrating all of this ethereal aspects of ourselves, and anything that's stuck will start to flow and move again. And I have had experiences like that myself. I remember when I first got the crystal bowls, and I would just sit there and tone with the sound of the bowls, and I would do these it felt like sonic psychotherapy sessions, where I'd like have an issue in my life. I'd take it to the bowl, I'd start playing the bowl, and then I'd start toning while I was almost having a dialogue with my soul. And the same thing would happen. There'd be like insights and memories that would all of a sudden spring up, which the sound just enthuses that kind of vibrating everything that's stuck, everything that's stagnant. And it does create light. Like you mentioned, the awakening of these light frequencies. Fabian Mammon, who's this great sound healer, he did this work in the 80s where he worked with a biological scientist, a bioscientist in France, and they took like live tissue samples and then bombarded them with sound waves, everything from singing to them to making instruments producing sounds. And they took these not only microscopic images, but then they layered on the Russian Kirlian photography that I'm sure you're familiar with, right? With the auric colors. And it's amazing. Like these photos are like mind blowing because you just see the living cells. The minute sound is made, they just light up. And you really just see right away that sound is light. Like they are the same thing. It's just light is the visible form of sound, and sound is the auditory quality of light. Like it's just all vibrating light. And sound enthuses that light. It lights it up even more. It definitely enlightens, you know. And the we were just speaking about shadow work before we went live here. And the shadow is where we keep all of that pain, that wounding, the things we don't want to look at. And the minute you sound into that, like when I would take the bowl, I'd be like, okay, there's this issue. I'm gonna like, and then it's like a torch is lit, and then you're just moving with the sound because it's also a carrier wave. It's like you're moving as a vehicle of sound into that shadow. And I love how you also beautifully said, there's this kind of grace that happens where the revelations come in this smooth way. It's not like you drank ayahuasca and there's like this bombarding, you know, the terrible beauty, as the Gnostics would call her, this like, whoa, like it's aggressive and it can be discombobulating and you actually need like a lot of integration work after. But when you're working with the natural field work of your vibrations, it's like, I've seen it too. There's this synthesis that takes place. It's like divine grace in the most tangible way.
It is, and it's free.
Oh, yes.
And you
So true.
combine this with movement,
Mm,
and particularly with the wave motion, which is the underlying movement of the primordial movement, which is
mm,
I don't actually bring people into a lot of the deeper sound work until they have the primordial movement because it is
mm,
a safeguard. It is the movement of love. It is a universal movement of creation.
mm,
So no matter where a person goes, as long as they are in this movement process, they will be held in this frequency of love. It's all frequency.
mm,
And the while my journey with sound began with healing,
mm,
that isn't what I mean, and that was like a 2-year process, which I think was pretty fast. And then the healing, of course, continues, but I'm talking about the intense healing.
mm,
Woven into that, almost every single step of the way is exactly what you were talking about, where you would sit down with your crystal ball and you'd ask a question. The
mm,
creativity that emerged is like
mm,
continues to blow me away.
mm,
It is so easy compared to when I used to struggle with it, try to
mm,
work it out. It's like you open up the pathways and the answers will come. And when I'm in sound and movement work, I mean, a whole weekend workshop can happen in like almost like a nanosecond. Boom. Ah, this
Mm.
is what I'm doing. And isn't this what life is? I mean, isn't this how nature works? Nature doesn't sit and try to figure it all out, right? And we are nature. Nature listens into the moment. It's always singing.
Mm.
This beautiful frequency.
Yes.
It's always moving. It's singing, it's moving, it's dancing. I mean, we that's why we thrive when we're in nature. I mean, that's why people are paying money to go walk in forests.
Yeah.
It's
So
crazy.
true.
But
Yeah.
this is where we've come to.
Mm.
And, I trust that in the future, we will all naturally know how to come into these frequency states through sound
Mm.
and through movement and
Hmm.
through our connection with a living planet where,
Mm.
the creativity that will emerge from that, well, who knows what that'll be, but that'll be like probably things we can't even imagine right now. Because we are at a time right now where there is a tremendous amount of stuckness. There's a tremendous amount of pain, fear, guilt, and shame on the planet. So,
Yes.
I mean, there's nobody to blame. This is what we've come for.
Hmm.
How do we open up the pathways, not just for the healing of our personal selves? I mean, that's great, and that's really important. But once you get, to a certain point, then you know that what you're doing is you're transmitting energies that are moving into the collective unconscious and changing the frequency and sound.
Yeah, that's the vibrational sovereignty piece to me.
That's right.
It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, Barbara Marciniak wrote that in the Palladian books. I think it was in Bringers of the Dawn or Path of Empowerment. She said, the Palladians basically said to her, frequency is your identity. And when I read that, I remember just having like such a deep aha moment because I was like, oh my gosh, yeah. And when we activate our voices, when we reclaim the voice as not just something to perform and be entertaining with, but to rather be in training with, to create frequencies that influence us, it's like a superpower because then you can modulate your frequency. You can have ownership of your frequency. I remember when I was studying Chinese medicine, we had this lovely Buddhist teacher, this Canadian woman who was a psychotherapist and a very disciplined Buddhist, and she had such a playful wisdom about her. And I remember one day she was saying, the worst thing you can do when you're depressed is think about it you know. But the best thing you can do is just stand up and just start to sing. And it's so true because the minute you start to sing, that light happens. Like everything gets lit up and you transform just with immediacy. And I always, when I teach, my sound healing intensives and my trainings, I always tell people like, reflect upon your favorite concert that you ever went to, and when people really look back on that experience, they describe it as kind of like a spiritual experience, because you'll be in this state. Sometimes it's like a big stadium, with like 10, 20,000 people. And when you're all singing these lyrics, together, even if they're trite and like poppy songs, but you unify, you're all of a sudden like all together in that universe, that one verse, and it really feels like you've transported into a whole other reality, even though you're in a stadium that's serving alcohol and all the things that would make us dullards, but the minute we're all singing together with these musicians who are truly vibrational sages, probably unbeknownst to themselves, although some are probably very aware. I remember seeing Peter Gabriel, and I could tell he knew what he was really doing, You too, the same, although they've been a little cheesy over the years. They apparently would have a tour with a priest who would bless them before they go out on stage because they really felt, hey, we're coming out here. And they were, really at the peak of their fame in, the late 90s and early 2000s when there was a lot of darkness in the world that was really creeping in. And and they were touring nonstop because they would say in interviews, we've gotta bring this torch of hope through our
Yeah,
songs. It's very
yeah,
inspiring.
yeah, it is. And the thing that I find that frightens most people and that keeps people's voices shut is the idea of singing,
Right.
right? Because I mean, it's if you don't have a good voice, like how many children were told to be quiet, don't, that you sound terrible. Like how many times does that happen? Even a look, just a look, one look can take your
Yes.
away for the rest of your life. I was
Yes.
very fortunate because I had a voice when I was younger. I was in musical theater and I was in high school and stuff and loved it, loved it.
Mm.
Um, so that was welcomed. And my father, we're French Canadian, my father always sang. So that was very welcome. I was really fortunate with that. And we danced. So I was, so that it was part of,
Perfect.
yeah, it was perfect. But most people are terrified of their voice.
Mm.
That is in my trainings, I call it the last frontier because people will do all sorts and they'll talk all the spiritual, you know, uh, truths and et cetera, et cetera. Get them to use their voice. That's
Mm.
a whole other thing.
Hmm.
And so, what I found really important with this, and what we want to, invite people into in this one day workshop that we're offering, is an exploration of our voice, just to free it up and to support people to realize that their song, the release of their song, is what is the most important thing. And it doesn't have to please anybody's ears
Mm.
because when we use our voices to even shape tones, like you do this all the time. I mean, that's why
Hmm.
I found you so inspiring.
Hmm.
Shape tones. What we're doing is we're not just moving stuck energies, we're
Mm.
activating our entire field of energy,
Hmm.
which brings us into state of, well, for me, it's as it's bliss. And
Yes.
it's satisfying. You know this. It's satisfying in a way that hardly anything else satisfies me.
Mm.
It satisfies my soul.
Mm.
And
Yes.
and as people work with their voices, become more comfortable with their voices, so that there's nothing that they can't express that
Yes.
that is wrong, like that they think is wrong. Like, I mean, I say to people, give me a good reason why you can't express any kind of sound. And they'll say, well, I might disturb somebody. And I say, now give me a good reason why you
Mm.
can't express, right? Because that's all cultural stuff. That's all saying, no, stay quiet.
Mm.
And as people open up their voices, as they feel the vitality, that's a result of allowing their voices to be free.
Yeah.
There will naturally come a time when they start to connect with their soul songs. Soul songs. Now, these are not songs that you would write out. Maybe you will write them out. But in my experience,
Mm.
they are so for the moment that I could never repeat it.
Right.
You know exactly what I'm talking about. They
For
are the
sure.
most satisfying form of expression that I have ever.
Yes. Well, it's like a primal language, when you start to sing without words even. Although I channel music, that's just, and I was born with that ability for whatever reason, whether it's a past life work that I'd been doing, but I just came in singing, but specifically singing in a way without words. I just loved I would go into trances every night before I go to bed and sing and so when I found sound healing and crystal bowls and I started to reactivate that, I just found when you sing without words, it almost communicates more than the words. It's this very profound primal world of yeah, a very primary expression. And I would see that in my even the initial sound baths that I was doing, that when I sang in that way, and I had some really dear friends, my friend Ali, who's, a Qigong instructor, she's a very sensitive being and she would give me the most amazing reflections after the sound journeys, and she would say, those songs that you sing without words, because I was always also had my guitar and I'd sing some lyrical compositions that I play, but when I did my sound journeys, they'd always be these wordless songs, really. She would talk about how it would just evoke, images and revelations and teachings and take her on this inner journey as well. Because when the words happen, and words can be very beautiful and poetic, but when words happen, they do trigger the intellect. It's like almost you're all of a sudden like in a more receptive place, receiving what the singer is saying. But when the singer's just channeling sound in a primal way, yes, you're still receiving the vibration, but you're now in this more open space to be moved, to be inspired, to be spoken to into more of the heart. And I really feel that this is something that we're going to explore so deeply in this awakening, the divine vibration. I'm seeing already like future little moments where I think it really recaptures, as well as children, when we're children, we come in just making primal sounds, and then we just stack on all this language and all this conditioning. And then we feel, oh, I'm so sophisticated. I have all this understanding about the world. But then, I remember Nietzsche, one of my favorite Nietzsche quotes, and I'm paraphrasing this, but he said, something along the lines of the true journey of an adult is to recover the seriousness we had as children as at play. And, when you make sound in this primal way, and you make, I love that you've referenced, how singing is like scary because it is the nakedness of the soul. When you sing, you are expressing the deep inner terrain of your soul. And I see that in my voice's journey over the years. My voice has changed so much
Oh,
since I first began, especially in this career
mhm.
because the more work I do on myself to liberate my self-expression, which happens hand in hand with every performance that I do, the voice just has infinite degrees where it can go, where you can get silly and foolish. Like I used to have moments when I was first doing my concerts where like, oh, I'm so anxious about making a mistake. And now I'm like, I love when a mistake happens because I just go with it. Or sometimes it's like, oh, I'm gonna go with that. I'm gonna take it like it's like a total inversion, you know. And a lot of that is just when you sound with the voice and you denude yourself in that way, you build this very profound confidence in the wild beauty, of nature and the soul.
And of the soul. You build a profound confidence
Mm,
in an aspect of yourself. I mean, this is a chakra. This is us expressing ourselves. Like this is coming into the world here,
mhm,
right? And when we can be comfortable with every single sound, like comfortable with every kind of movement, every kind of sound that emerges through us, then we are comfortable with ourselves.
mm,
So it's no more about, this is a nice sound, this is a right tone. It's none of that. And that's what we're going to be exploring. I know that. And when you talk about children, I mean, children are making these primal sounds all the time. And
mhm,
because of this exploration that I've done over the decades, a number of times I'd be with a mom with a young child. So the child is
mm.
pre-verbal, right?
Mhm.
and they're making noise. And the mom's
Yeah.
trying to make, they're in public. And I would turn like automatically, without even thinking, I would turn to that child and I start speaking back to them the tones that they were speaking to me. And I
Wow.
cannot tell you, like this is just like a knee-jerk reaction. I
Right.
cannot tell you that that child would go, boom, focus.
Wow.
They're looking me straight. Then it's like, finally, I'm heard.
Wow.
And
That's crazy.
it's
Awesome.
so, it is so crazy. It is so, and it's so much fun.
Yeah.
So, I mean, sound work, yes, is powerful and it's
Mm.
fun, it's playful,
Yes.
and it has to be. These we can take ourselves and what's happening on the planet and what
Mm.
we're doing here. Yes, it's serious work, but we can't take it all so seriously because
Mm.
I don't see anything in nature doing that. And nature is truly my teacher.
Mm.
I
And we play music. I mean,
we
it's,
play.
you know.
Right, we play it. That's right. So I'm really excited about collaborating with you and seeing, what's going to emerge from this because we've come into this magic world of sound play
Mm.
and from such different angles. And yet there's such and yet we've come to the same place.
Mm.
And we offer it in
Mhm.
ways, but in terms of the understanding of how, particularly now on the planet, with, as we said earlier, the frequencies as they are,
Mm.
and the invitation, the very strong invitation from the earth
Mm.
to um, step into who we are. I do not see and bring our gifts forward into the world fearlessly. Yeah,
Mm.
okay, we'll tremble a little bit as we bring them forward. That's okay. It is okay.
Mm.
But to bring them into the world, that's what's most important, each one of us. And I, sound work isn't the only way, but it is such a powerful way. And as far as I'm concerned, it fast tracks us.
Yes, I agree. Well, they say there's a very powerful phrase from, I think it's the Upanishads, the ancient Vedic texts. I think it's Anavriti Sabda, which is Vedic, and it means liberation through sound. And it really is that revelation that there is an acceleration that happens. And that's why mantra was one of the eight branches of yoga, was sound practice and the nada yoga. I mean, it's always been a
Mhm.
big part of the ancient mystical tradition, sound and music. Um, and I'm super passionate about illuminating that to people so that they can understand that sound healing isn't just a new spiritual fad. This is something that's just its time has come and it's been around for a very long time. And of course, there's lots of new innovations that are taking place, but we can really pull on deep roots with this. And then experiencing it ourselves and innovating it for our own, purposes is the profound calling before us. And it is so, as you said earlier, it's free. And the really most difficult part is getting beyond those masks of pretense, the neuroses that have been sort of injected in us through our social conditioning that we're supposed to be, in this homogenous status quo, where the minute you start to, as I call it, express your inner unicorn, your unique self, you feel tender about it because chances are maybe when you were young you were shut down and you just felt how horrible that feels to be like, but my uniqueness wants to flower in this world. And the soul is very tender, it's very sensitive, but it's also a behemoth of strength when it's like fully activated and it's resilient, of course, because it's eternal. And sound is really that I've often called sound work also it's like the it's an excavation tool. It like excavates and it can like dig away and clear all the obfuscations that are obscuring the soul from coming out. I mean, I've had so many just profound moments when I've just allowed my voice to just fully emerge, in front of people or alone. And it really is this flowering. It's like my soul's just like coming out of this hermitage to like blaze itself beautifully into the world. And that
You know,
feels great.
it,
Feels great.
it feels amazing. I
Mm.
was just I was co-facilitating a ecosomatic
Mm.
retreat in North
Azra's
Carolina.
place.
Yeah, Azerbaijan and Surin.
Mm.
And there were a couple of women there who very shyly told me that um, they started to speak in tongues, so to speak. They didn't know
Hmm.
how it was, to
Hmm.
talk about it.
Hmm.
And they were very shy about it. I introduced them to the shruti, which they
Mm.
did because then they would have an instrument, to
Yes.
explore. But we were talking about this. And so, yes, it excavates, and this is important.
Hmm.
Although we have done a lot of excavation work, I think
Mm.
many over the
Hmm.
decades, this has been the time of a lot of what's called the shadow work happening.
Hmm. Hmm.
What I'm finding now with the people that I'm working with, the deeper desire, the healing will continue as long as we live in the world that needs healing. We will continue to be part of the healing, uh, an organism that supports the healing, not just for ourselves, but for the world.
Mm.
What I'm finding is that people are excited and longing because they know
Mm.
there are frequencies that need to come into the planet now.
Mm.
They have to come in. It's a time.
Mm.
And, I had this, it was a whole felt experience when I was at this retreat. I was bringing in some of the movement, the primordial movement, along with some sound work. And we were we were exploring the different stages of development, right into the womb. And so I took people on a journey from before we entered the womb and just really, tapped into the essence and the remembrance because we have that memory still
Mm.
alive in us, of course. And it's a soul memory. And what I received was, and this is kind of a no-brainer, but for me it was because I felt it in my body.
Mm.
That's when I trust it, is when it's in my body.
Mm.
Was that there are frequencies coming to us all the time, from, other than like other beings that are not living in the third dimensional world.
Mm.
Frequencies coming from the sun,
Mm. Mm.
frequencies from the stars. Like, I mean, we're being bombarded with spirit, which you could call spiritual frequencies. But when a frequency comes through a human or a body, because it can happen,
Mm.
it's happening with the animals, it's happening with the trees and the plants all the time.
Mhm.
When it comes, but let's talk about humans.
Mhm.
Frequency comes through the body, it is 1,000 times more potent on this planet
Mm.
than when it comes in not embodied. We are here in bodies for a reason,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
And so there are frequencies now available to us, and which I mean, when I started
Mm.
this journey 50 years ago, these
Mhm.
frequencies weren't available to us.
Right.
At least they weren't to me. No, I don't think they were. And
Yeah.
and now people are finding themselves suddenly talking in tongues and wondering, am I going crazy?
Mm.
But these are frequencies. It happens to me all the time. It happens to you. I've seen it.
Hmm.
Frequency is being downloaded into the planet through a human body.
Mm.
And
Wow.
and because it's happening through a human body, it's rooting in the earth.
Mm,
It's rooting through our frequency, our into the earth.
mm,
And that is creating massive transformations.
mm.
And so in this workshop that we're doing, which I know could be, easily a month-long workshop, but we're going to just start it off with a day, with one day
Yeah, yeah,
from
for
10.
sure.
We'll be going from 10:30 to probably about 10.
Yes.
Um, we're going to explore how do we open to these frequencies and allow ourselves to begin to be the carrier. They're not
Hmm.
ours. They're everyone's. They're the universe's. They're the Earth's.
Yes.
And allow these frequencies to move through us in
Hmm.
a way that they get rooted and spread like mycelium.
Mm. I love this. Yeah.
No, because I mean, it's all light energy.
Yes.
And I'm sure the mycelium are listening and picking it up. And I know when I do the sound work, I can feel the trees. I can feel the joy of the trees around me. I mean,
Massive. Hmm.
yeah. So
Yeah.
the potential here, as we've taken the last, I think, a couple of decades now, to really begin to explore sound work. And it's come to a point now where there's a refinement happening with many, many, many people.
Mm.
And, certainly the work that you've been doing, the work I've been doing, there are many people that are refining this, not to have a refined voice, to be able to sing nicely,
Hmm. Hmm.
tune to the frequencies that
Hmm.
will only make your soul so damn happy
Yeah.
that you just want to keep going back and diving more deeply into it.
And I love that. I mean, everything you're saying coincides so much. Like it dovetails so beautifully with, one of the other passions of mine, which is, carrying the story of the ancient goddess Sophia from the mystery schools, which I've shared at the Living Center before. And I know we have such an affinity for these old mythological stories. And the Gnostics say, that Mother Earth used to be a star goddess and she fell into matter at great sacrifice to give humanity a home for us to live upon. And they say because she's fallen from the galactic center, her more ethereal home, she's in this kind of drama of trying to figure out how to bridge the ethereal with the material as she becomes this planetary body. And humanity, who are her divine children, crafted by her beautiful divine handiwork, we play a crucial role apparently and this is a term that they use, the Gnostics, they called it her correction. And they say that we play a crucial role. And the Taoists, who were also very in touch with all this indigenous knowledge, would say that human beings are the pillars between heaven and earth.
I agree.
And I think what you've just said to me is like just further explaining and specifying what is happening, which is I believe she's actually receiving right now in her transit through the cosmos. She is in this new kind of astronomical position where she's receiving these frequencies from the galactic center. And then it's our job to be kind of like the transducers. We almost translate these frequencies into the earth for her to properly absorb them and integrate them. And then symbiotically, we get to exist in her awakening as our awakening through all of that. So it's like this beautiful,
Yes.
yeah, it's so profound, and
Yes.
and I love that, I'll be able to speak to this on our day long, ceremonial. It's feels like it's a very ceremonial day, and play, and be in the wildness of all this. But to really, I love, illuminating these big contexts for people and everything you just shared, just like it was just like so many sparks just went off inside of me. It's just seeing the bigger context of this work. It's like vibrational sovereignty, but it's also vibrational gnosis because sound and singing and toning is how we come to know things, because it opens things, it breaks them open. It moves things that are stagnant. It and enhances our consciousness too, so that we can plug into that bigger divine cosmic mind.
And we don't need to understand what's
Mm,
the
right.
the it is enough, and we will know
Mm,
when we've tapped in because we feel it in our bodies. We feel the exuberance of it, we feel the joy of it, we feel the love of it, we
hmm
feel the satisfaction. Like it is a radiant
hmm
felt experience. And so I think we're moving into a time where we don't need so many words, you know?
Yeah.
But what we do need is we need to trust
Mm,
that the frequencies that are being activated in us are not just for us.
mm,
Because when we think it's just for us, we can kind of, well, you know,
right. Yeah.
like maybe, I'll be imposing or, maybe this isn't real. But when we realize that what we're doing is so much bigger than us, because we're all interconnected anyway,
hmm
so I mean, it's not what, where do I end and the air begin? Like,
mm
like where do I end and you begin? Like, I mean, we're in constant frequency communication, even here on Zoom.
hmm
And so we're beginning to realize that, and a lot of people are beginning to wake up to the fact that we are interconnected
mm
and that what we're doing isn't just personal. And what is that old like what was it like 40 years ago, um, something along the lines of act global,
Oh,
act locally,
think globally.
think globally, act locally. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
for
exactly what
sure.
we're doing here.
Yes. Yeah. Except the globe has now become the living goddess. And the locality is like an eco-village of
Uh,
mystical kindred spirits. But yes, we're that bridge, we are bridging, and I agree with you. I think man, I'm getting so many visions, of like cultural events where people don't use words, and they just tone all day and just get into that. I've wanted to invite that in my trainings, at a certain point. I see almost like a new edition of my source resonance training where it's a more experimental week together, where we have like one day where it's like, because we already do some silent moments. We have a whole silent like night into a silent morning to midday. And that's, a lot of people are doing that. And that's a little safe in some ways. Of course, silence brings its own things up, but imagine going the other way and being like,
right.
hey, we're going to spend a whole day where you can't use words, but you have to sound. What would that
Well,
look
I've done
like?
that. I've done the 24
I'm sure you have. There you go.
4
Okay.
hours of movement through the night where we all sleep together in the same room.
Whoa.
And you just go in, you can get up and you move whenever you want, and you sound,
Wow.
and it's so powerful when you let go of the need to the need to sound like you have it together because you're using words.
Mm,
I mean, that's what we do, right? I got it together because I mean, I've got the words,
true.
right?
So true.
Just to allow this other form
Yeah.
of language
Yeah.
to begin to reveal its gifts to us.
Yes.
That's what we're going to be sharing on the 14th of this month, which is
Yes.
a couple of weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love, I have such a trust in you and both of us together that we really know how to lean into the mystery. And I think that's like a very masterful way of facilitating. And that's why I mentioned your channel, because I remember one of the first times we did one of these beautiful day-long retreats, one thing that I really was inspired by was you really channeled activities and wisdom, and you would spontaneously pivot if you felt like the new energy come in. I could feel you all day, just like feeling. And I felt in complete trust with you in that because I improvise as well. But for me, it was like you were taking it to a whole other level. It was really cool.
It's
And
great.
I'm really excited that this particular day, the awakening the divine vibration, to me, it's like leaning into that even more. Because when you start to open those sounding spaces and encourage people to come into movement as well and the playfulness of it all, the moment really becomes the guru because you're transforming in an instant and you're opening yourself really all the channels to be infused with that intuitive spontaneous wisdom that is really the way truth operates and it'll be so nice. I see the evening, after this long, beautiful day of playful, easeful, remarkable revelations and transformations that I'm sure will be inevitable. That we'll have this evening where, we'll take people into like a deep sound journey with poetry and who knows what other beautiful little spices will come of our co-weaving in that. But it'll be almost like a gift to everyone after this day of doing all this beautiful inner play and inner work to then be in more, maybe even that receptive visionary state where, because that's what I truly find with the mystical power of music when I do a sound journey. I'm giving people a soundtrack to just go on a journey with their soul. And that is a gift, and when I get the feedback afterwards of what people have experienced, going on those journeys, it's very profound. So that'll be a very nice sonic cherry on the top, of the
Yes,
day.
people can be still and journey lying down, or they can be in movement.
Or they can be in movement. Thank you for saying that. Yes.
Because for myself, when I attended your at your concert that you were offering with your friend from Germany, this beautiful man, what
Oh,
was
Mitch. Yeah. Wow.
I was in movement the entire,
Yes.
and it moved things in my body that
Mm,
have been stuck for the last 2 months.
mm,
And I felt so open and so spacious after.
mm,
So for me, for some people it's stillness. For me,
mhm,
I I um I receive insights
mm,
and my greatest creativity
mhm,
in movement
mhm,
with the sound.
mm,
So it will be so anybody who's coming and who's listening to this, just
mm.
that the space will be open because some people have a hard time just laying there, for a period of time. The space.
It's so true. I mean, I was just in Niagara the other day, and it's so funny because I usually always preface my sound journeys with that. Hey, most of you are going to be lying down or seated in meditation, but if you are a mover, if you feel inclined to like be
Mhm.
in the soma of the body, go for it. And for whatever reason, I forgot to say that. And at the end, everyone loved this Earth Awakening kind of bardic druidic concert that I did. But one woman came up to me, she's like, "Oh, I loved it, but I wish you had invited people to move because I just really wanted to stand up and move, and I felt shy." And I was like, "Oh, I can't believe I forgot to say that. You were totally, of course, you could have moved." And so it's interesting that I think more people are starting to feel that, and I think this day-long thing is going to welcome a bunch more new initiates who will be wandering around event to event now also wanting to be in their psychosomatic movements.
Well, Darren, I got to tell you, it hasn't been a long time that I've been working with a microphone and a reverb machine
Mm,
and, um, a speaker. Like I've really just brought that in over the last while.
mm,
I have about 5 people that I've worked with who are buying this
mm,
because it has opened up something for them. Because
mm,
in the workshops, I would pass them the mic and I'd say, okay, what is your song? Now, these are people that I have worked with for a while. So,
right.
anybody listening to this, we're not going to be putting you on the spot like this. But they just hearing their own voice in this reverberation
Yes.
has was so exciting for them and so healing that well, maybe we will play with this a little bit, with the group. I
Well, this year, in my source resonance intensive in Costa Rica, I did something that I had wanted to do for a few years, and the schedule always gets very tight because it's a training intensive and there's just a lot of ground to cover. But this year, I really made sure to make space for it. And we did what I called a shamanic open mic, where one night, like deeper in the week, when the walls had been brought down and people were more uninhibited and feeling, the freedom of their expression, I just brought, I set up a nice little stage and I had the microphone, I had my reverb station, I had all my instruments, and they could choose to have me as sort of their backing band, or backing musician or not. And it was amazing to just have people experience that and to experience, as I shared with you, one of the things that really catapulted my growth as a sonic oracle, as I call myself, like as a soul singer, was getting that mic stand or the microphone, the mic stand, and that reverb mixer and the speaker. And it was like looking in the mirror of my soul every day because I'd have this speaker facing me and I could hear all the nuances of the voice. And of course, the reverb makes you sound like you're singing in this sacred temple. So it evokes the infinitudes because your voice all of a sudden has this like huge tail behind it and it's enlarged. And it helps to highlight the beautiful textures of the voice. I think everyone has a beautiful singing voice, they just all sound different. But when someone also is allowed to amplify their voice, it's like wow. Like some of my favorite singers, I just know as someone who uses, a microphone quite a bit now. It's like when you get really in close to the microphone and you're singing that soft falsetto. If you didn't have the microphone, people probably what? But you're really getting in and taking this tender little expression and just strengthening it so people can really hear and feel the falsetto, that for men, especially when they get in their falsetto, it's like it's a man basically like taking off his armor and allowing the goddess to like move his divine feminine. And that's whenever I get in my falsetto. And I love too, because people at the end of my journeys will sometimes say, "Who was that woman who were you singing with?" And I love getting that compliment because I'm like, well, that was me. And that feels really like, yeah, you get into this beautiful space of, yeah, just being able to journey into so many different dimensions of the self with the voice. It's
and this
truly my favorite spiritual practice
yeah,
is
and
is
this is
surrendering to
what
song.
totally, and this is what we want to. I mean, this what you've just shared. This not necessarily with the mic and the stand and all of that, but that
Sure.
being able to journey
Mm,
into sound, to be able to, or through sound.
mhm,
Let
mm,
let sound journey you basically,
mm,
and and to support people to become unafraid
mm.
of this great gift that we've been given by life.
Yes.
Our
Yes.
sound, our sound, not the
Absolutely.
song, our sound, but within our
Yes.
sound is our song. And that's unique to every single person. And getting away from this is a song and this is a tone and this is
Mm.
even a lot of the toning that's out there now and the chanting, like everything in our linear culture, it's become more linear. It's
Yeah,
lost.
formulaic. Yeah.
So my work has always been about what's underneath all of this. What's before the yoga? Yoga's great.
Mm,
What's
mm,
before that? What's before the sounds or the I love opera. Like Andre Bocelli is one of my favorites.
mm,
I love
mhm,
that music.
mhm, mhm,
But what's before all of that?
mhm, mhm.
Because how
Yes.
many Andre Bocellis, really are going
Mhm,
to have the opportunity to be even witnessed? Or how many times will a person have in their lifetime to witness themselves?
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah,
so that's the invitation for this.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm looking forward to this.
Me too. I am as well. So for anyone who has been tuning in, it's September 14th at the Living Center, Awakening the Divine Vibration, and you can find all the details on the Living Center website. I'll post all the details in this video and all the channels that this will be emerging on. And yeah, I mean it's going to be an amazing. It'll be at the nearing, the last weekend before the end of the fall too, or the end of the summer as well. So I'm sure we'll have a bit of a texture of transition time.
And it will be the day before my 76th birthday.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Wow, that is
I I
profound.
know. I'm really
Oh
I
my
it feels like a
goddess.
gift to me.
Wow, that is amazing. Oh wow, I'm honored. I had no idea. And I'll be crashing there that night, I hope so. I'll be
Yeah,
able to
yes, yeah.
celebrate your birthday morning with you and your wonderful partner, Shantri. That's amazing. And we have the dance on Friday, that Friday at St. Mary's too, which I hope you guys will come as my guests, always.
We'll definitely be there.
Well, Lorena, it's always a pleasure.
Yeah. And it's a pleasure.
Always such a pleasure. I look so forward to our next co-creation, and I hope everyone who's been watching has gained some beautiful insights into the wonderful world of sound, and hope to see you with us in some capacity soon or at some other future divine time. And as I like to say, may the source be with you.
Blessings. Blessings. Thank you.